Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday morning. This presentation is being put on by WCA Services Incorporated, which is the service corporation of the Wisconsin Counties Association. My name is Michael Lamont. I serve as the Director of Programs and Services, and in that role, I service the service corporation. I'm trying to bring products and services to our county members that might provide something at a lower cost or be able to allow you to work more efficiently. This morning's presentation is regarding healthy environments and spaces, which all of us are dealing with right now as a result of COVID-19. Our counties are tasked with providing safe buildings and spaces for not only their employees, but also the general public. We know many of you have worked tirelessly through this pandemic and continue to do so. Some of you with limited access from the public into buildings, others just allowing employees in. But we're tasked with, again, providing those safe environments for our administrative buildings, our courthouses, our jails, for some of us, our nursing facilities as well. And we believe that we have partnered here with Johnson Controls to bring you those products and services. So we have formed a strategic alliance with them regarding their products and services that they have that can help you provide those safe environments in those facilities that we talked about. And we think that today's presentation will give you a high-level overview of what that will look like. Some of this will be describing the products and services. Another section will be discussing the CARES Act and that funding. Another part will focus on funds specifically designated for nursing facilities as well. Before I turn this over to Johnson Controls, I just want to let you know that we welcome questions at the end of every slide. So if you want to enter those in either the Q&A, if you're participating by Zoom, or the chat function, we will be monitoring those. If you are joining us today by telephone, you can press *9 and we'll unmute you to ask that question as well. But again, we welcome the open dialogue during the presentation, so don't feel like you have to save those until the end, because we think that that will direct the conversation to the areas where counties are most interested, and that's really what we're trying to do here. So again, thank you for joining us. I'll turn this over to Jeff so he can introduce the Johnson Control team. Jeff?
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. Appreciate the Wisconsin Counties Association allowing us to come in and speak today. We hope everyone is safe. We hope your family and friends and community members are all safe during this unique situation. On behalf of everyone at Johnson Controls, we want to thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. My name is Jeff Repsch. I've been with Johnson Controls for nearly 20 years, and I've held various positions within the state of Wisconsin and throughout North America. My role at Johnson Controls is basically to help counties like yourself take advantage of the total cost of ownership of your facilities. A little background of Johnson Controls, some of you may be familiar with, others may not, but we are a heating, ventilation, air conditioning, security, and fire alarm company, basically a technology company for the infrastructure of buildings. We actually started in 1885 in Whitewater, Wisconsin. Our founder, Warren Johnson, was a professor it was normal school at that time, but at the University of Whitewater. Right now we have 100,000 employees worldwide in probably over 130 countries. It expands on a regular basis. Located in 2,000 locations in those countries, specifically with Wisconsin County's 6 that'll meet any needs that you may have. The unique situation about my position is in February of this past year, all my travel was stopped. And I say that for the point that Johnson Controls was in China when this happened, and our security team made it very clear that we were not going to expose our employees, our customers, our staff to a situation like this. So all travel was stopped at that time. The reason why I bring that up is that we have a lot of experience dealing with the situations, not just in Wuhan, China, with some of the hospitals that were built there in 7 days, but in various facilities throughout the world. And we've learned a lot during that time. And the biggest thing that we learned is that there's no one solution, and really it's a layered solution. And it's a customized solution for each entity. So I would look at the 72 counties in Wisconsin. Each one of you will have a unique situation that needs to be addressed. You know, everybody is aware about wearing a face mask and social distancing and washing hands. But I think the one aspect that is becoming more and more prevalent is the concept of social distancing is okay if there's no wind flow. But if you're downwind from somebody and they're 6 feet away, you're exposing yourself to this airborne pathogen. And so that's some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today. Now, I'm going to stop here and let Mary Fox take over because I'm just a rookie here with 20 years of experience. Mary shared that she's been doing this for 36 years. So I'm going to let her talk about it. I'm fortunate enough to have Mary present about some of the products, some of the procedures and the processes that we've implemented throughout North America and throughout the world. Mary is the vertical market director for Healthy Living Spaces. She understands a lot of the issues that are dealing with assisted living facilities, jails, prisons out there. So she leads our task force on these presentations. So with that, Mary, if I could turn it over to you. Mary, are you on mute?
Yes, I am.
That is one of the most common things said today. Are you on mute?
You're on mute. Maybe that's a good thing. So healthy spaces in Wisconsin counties is extremely important. And what that does is so who do we cover, or who are we actually reaching out to today? We're reaching out to county jails, courthouses, assisted living facilities, long-term care, nursing, public housing, and other public and county facilities. If you realize, and I'm sure that we all are short of funds today, but the funding comes through the Wisconsin Routes to Recovery. Lo and behold, there's HHS, there's the CARES Act, there's capital funds, there's CDBG, there's operating funding, reserves, third party, and grants, which, I have the HEROES Act. I was told it might change to the HEALS Act, depending on your Republican or Democrat or who you are. I'm not really sure what the final name of the act is, but there are additional funds coming out to assist all of us, because this isn't the 1 or the 2 month that we were all hoping. We all said, oh, okay, we'll have lockdown for a month and everything will be rosy. We're finding that we're on really uncertain terms with this illness and where it's going to go. But what we need to do is we need to figure out how to provide a safe environment for your employees and your public. So whether it lasts another month or 6 months or 10 months, we need to look at safe environments. And how do we do that? And I think what we need to do is we need to take that into technical solutions, which might be thermal imaging, software, UVC lighting, bipolar, air balancing, portals, troughers, a lot of different technologies out there to assist you and indoor air quality. And the benefit is at the end of the day, we want to identify the health risk, we want to contain the health risk, and we want to remove the health risk as best as we can, and that's through technology and sanitization. So on the next slide, we're actually going to show you some of the technologies that can be available for you underneath this situation.
Mary, this is Michael. If I could jump in really quick.
Absolutely.
We want to discuss, why is it so urgent that we act now? And maybe that's a question for you, or maybe that's a question for Jeff, but why is this so important today?
It's important actually for a number of reasons, Michael. The first thing is the federal government is providing additional assistance to actually help pay for these. So that's the first thing, is that none of us have a lot of money laying around, and so we need some financial assistance. Second off, the urgency comes is that we can only, as Jeff said, we can only do so much with hand sanitization and face masks and distancing. We need to take it upon ourselves to actually use technology that we have that can disable and disarm this virus that we have in the air. So we need to take it a step farther so we can be good stewards, but we need assistance. And so the urgency is to try and actually eradicate the virus itself. And the only way to eradicate it 100% is through technology.
Thank you.
Mary, if I could add 2 things there. The one thing is that there's money available in the CARES Act that expires on November 6th in Wisconsin specifically. So it's taken advantage for the 72 counties of the money that they have all been allocated. If the money isn't used, then it goes back to the state of Wisconsin and probably the federal government at that point. We're not exactly sure what would happen. I think the second thing that we've talking to other executive directors, other administrators, everybody's looking for a plan. And when asked, what is the plan? What is your strategy for taking care of this? Everybody wants to have a good answer. So there's kind of different mechanism, a financial approach, but then also a strategy and leadership approach is why we're coming forward with this.
So those are both really good questions, and there is an urgency. And part of that urgency is when we decided to put together, we call it a kit, but it's a layered solution. But when we went out and started looking at how can we actually help our communities, that's part of our job. We had to look at technology that was readily available, was affordable, and it was proven. So we looked at things such as the IsoClean, which is a portable isolation device for isolating a room, so making a negative pressure room. We looked at bipolar ionization, which can actually release negative and positive ions that actually in the airstream will neutralize viruses, bacteria, things like that. We looked at UVC light, which is, again, well known in the ductwork to make sure that as things are coming through the return air, that we're, again, neutralizing it. Or no contact thermal cameras, whether it be Johnson Controls illustrial thermal imaging that can pick up to 38 people at a time and pick out of limits, to no contact inexpensive thermal kiosks where I always say great application for elderly facilities. You walk up and it's green, you can go in because you're within limits. If it's red, it's no, stop, and it will send out an alarm or alert. But something as simple that your youngest child to the oldest elderly can actually work with. Air sanitizer troffers, which again can be in rooms such as bathrooms or portals or sanitize. But what we're looking at is a variety of technologies that can be easily installed, ordered, and actually delivered in time. As Jeff said, there's a little bit of, I shouldn't say a panic, maybe an urgency, that November 6th is right around the corner, and the technologies that we've selected can be ordered, easily designed, and easily installed within the time frame that we're actually looking at. So we've looked at very carefully to make sure that we can meet your November 6th deadline, and technologies that we know that will have good results.
So Mary, I don't have the 36 years of expertise. I've only been working with everyone over at Johnson Controls for maybe a little over a month now. But I remember the one conversation that we had touched upon, the focus here, or I guess the focus that most of our counties have been talking about is really COVID-19. But I think that there's a bigger picture regarding some of these technologies, and so it's not just for today, but it's also for the future. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Absolutely. That was probably part of my background is long-term solutions. So the short-term solution is it can take care of the COVID-19. The long-term is that this will take care of allergens. This will take care of bacteria, odors, mold. So when you start looking about it, when we named this, we were serious. This is a healthy living environment kit that is for today and for tomorrow and for the health of your staff, your employees, your residents, your inmates for future to come. So this is a long-term solution also, Michael.
Okay. And then we do have, a great friend and partner of the Counties Association on with us, Mark Ableys Allison, Bayfield County Administrator, who I think has already implemented some of these products and or services. So Mark, thank you for joining us this morning and agreeing to be a panelist. Do you want to talk a little bit about, how you took this action or what prompted you to enter into the services of Johnson Controls?
Certainly. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm located in Bayfield County in the northern part, the northern edge of the state of Wisconsin. We're not totally unique in that we're experiencing COVID just as counties and municipalities are throughout the state. We are a little bit different, however, in that we're very rural, but at the same time, we have a tremendous amount of tourism and second homeowners. And so we have our population doubles, triples during the summer months. There was a tremendous concern on behalf of the county to ensure that that we have a safe place for both the public to come to as well as for employees to work in. We've done many of the same things that probably most other counties and municipalities have done, including cleaning enhancements, hand sanitizers. We've done a couple of other unique items. One of them has been windows in our main customer service offices, as well as installing partitions. Those are kind of blocking at direct content. As I think Mary and Jeff were saying, the COVID is airborne. And so we were trying to figure out a way to try to address that airborne factor on a continuous basis. And so we talked to a number of providers, and we talked to Johnson Controls specifically about the bipolar ionization. And it involves installing ionizers right on our air handlers so that whenever the air handler is working, it's pumping ionized air into our workplaces. It's not just in one specific area, it's everywhere that the air goes. The ions are active, it's my understanding, for a period of roughly 5 minutes. And they, as Mary noted, they neutralize and they kill the, either drop the VOCs or the virus to the ground, or they neutralize it. So we're really looking at it as a county-wide solution wherever we have air handlers. So far, actually just last week, we did our install, and 15 different units were installed in air handlers in the courthouse, in the jail, the sheriff's office. Our initial focus was really on the jail. We wanted to make that as safe an environment as we possibly could, because that population is not able to be remote. But as we were talking about it more with our county board, the county board said, we want to make this solution for everyone. And so we expanded it to all of the county air handlers, in addition to our highway department main office, really focused on the kind of totality, but also on that bigger picture that Mary just mentioned. And that is, it's not just a solution for COVID, but it's a cleaner air solution for today as well as for tomorrow. Maybe just two other notes, and I'll stop. And that is always looking at the financials. One of the highlights of the ionization is that it creates energy savings. And the rationale for that is that it reduces the amount of clean air that you need to bring into the system. And so potentially you could reduce the clean air or fresh air, and they report savings of up to 30%. The other major consideration was labor. Some of the other solutions that we looked at involved a lot of individual staff labor to do this or to do that. This is a continuous, everywhere solution that the county was impressed with.
Thanks, Mark. And I think you bring up, great points, and that is, one, the energy savings, but just overall clean air. So whether it be COVID-19, flu, allergens, anything of that nature, you're really providing that clean air environment, again, to your point, not only for the population inside the jail that, to your point, cannot work remote or be remote, but then also to your employees and the general public for coming into the building. So I think that's fantastic. And it did not require you to upgrade all of your systems, correct? I mean, the ionization was installed on your current air handlers, right?
Correct. There are a number of different models, large, small. They even make them for split. We have a number of air conditioning units that are split. So there are a number of sizes that they have available.
Okay, great.
And Michael, we do have a question for Mark here from George Hoppin. Regarding the current speaker, were air quality tests performed before the BPI installations and then after to confirm the installation was worthwhile?
We are doing, we did purchase one of the air monitors, and we are in the process of doing that. We're not going to be able to do it in all the 15 different locations, but we will be. we will be doing individual testing in maybe 3 or 4 of our different areas.
That's a great question. And I'd go ahead and offer this up because I know that Mark is always willing to speak with the staff at the Counties Association, but also other administrators and other county board members around the state. But obviously, if you have a question that is outside something that you want to ask either staff of WCA or Johnson Control, I know that Mark is always available to discuss what they're doing in Bayfield County to try to provide that safe environment. So again, Mark, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being a panelist today. I'll turn it back over to you, Mary.
Thank you so much, Michael, and thank you, Mark. Great comments. One of the things we wanted to discuss with you was the actual applying of the healthy living environment. As we talked about, it is a layered effect. Mark took advantage of the bipolar ionization for his situation. But if we were to look at this holistically, there's different solutions for each and every facility, and it could be one or it could be all of the solutions. So as we look at it, we look at deferring and identifying. So what does that mean? The very first thing I think we're all getting familiar with is having your temperature taken before you actually enter the facility. There's a lot of different ways to do that. There's the no contact thermal imaging kiosks that we talked about, thermal imaging or the UV portal. So in other words, before anybody enters the building, let's look at how we defer any type of people outside of that parameters actually coming into the facilities. Once they're actually in the facility, then what happens is we actually usually go to a reception area, a lobby area. And so we want to make sure that we keep that area cleansed. So it may be cleansing troughers, it might be downlights to sanitize. And when I say downlights, sanitize, so sanitize counters and the airspace itself, so that a lot of times we're signing in, we're touching. It's an area where people seem to gather. Once we've gotten by the reception area, we probably now are more towards what Mark actually did, and that was looking at the mechanical rooms, looking at the air handlers, the rooftop units, the makeup air units, bipolar ionization. And one of the other things is actually air balancing and ventilation to make sure that if we are reducing the amount of clean air that's coming in, let's make sure that we're balancing the clean air that's actually in the facility and it's properly recirculating through. So air balancing and ventilation is just as important as the bipolar ionization. And then as Mark said, there are devices that can be installed to actually measure the results of that. So it can be through a Medisys system, it could be through an existing building automation system, or it could be a standalone device to actually monitor that. The next is we look at resident units or office spaces that we want to maintain that condition. So a lot of times when you get to your office, you no longer are required to have your face mask on, and social distancing across the desk is very acceptable. So what happens is we have to look at how do we make sure that resident units or office spaces are kept clean. So a lot of times we have P-TECH units, individual units, VAV systems, things like that. So there is a small device called the unitary bipolar device that can actually fit in in P-TECH units or other type of devices. One of the things that we've seen that I think a lot of people have already implemented is isolation rooms or isolation areas. And we have a device called the ISO Clean, which is a portable device that can be used to either create a negative room or actually a negative room with UVC to actually clean the air. So there are devices out there that can be set up that don't need to be permanently modification of your HVAC system, but you can set it up so that you do have an area and even maybe just a waiting room. So let's say that somebody gets to the front entry and they're out of temperature range. What do you do with them? You can't, let's say it's an elderly person coming in, you can't just turn them away in most situations. So taking them to some type of isolation room or clean room where they can wait out and make a determination as to what's the next step. Also, whether we have courthouses, we have jails, we have nursing homes, there's always common areas, there's dining areas, there's lunchroom, and a lot of times these have separate HVAC systems. So making sure those HVAC systems have either bipolar ionization or UVC light and some type of cleansing trapper, which actually is a replacement for an existing light fixture, 2x4. I'll give you an example. I guess my best example is bathrooms. bathrooms have a lot of exhaust, but do you ever see a lot of ventilation in bathrooms? Usually not. It's usually just exhaust. Air comes in from underneath the door or from leaving the door open. So what we have recommended is these cleaning troughers, which are 2x4 troughers that actually can recirculate the air in the room. It takes it through a HEPA filter, but it also has a UVC light in it that will actually sanitize the air as it goes through. And then it's built so that it actually has LED lights in it. So we're not taking out a 2x4 troffer and removing light. We're actually replacing the light source and then actually having clean. So we're really looking at a holistic, and I know there's other things that people have asked for, but this kind of gives you an idea of how Johnson Controls would go through your facility, look at your facility, and come up with recommendations that we call our kit or solutions that can be installed and implemented before the deadline or even after the deadline if we can find energy conservation to help pay for it. As Mark was saying, when we start doing bipolar ionization, we can reduce the amount of outside air, which reduces the amount of either cooled or heated air that we need within the facility. So that's kind of our holistic approach of walking a facility and quickly identifying what potentially we can do in that area.
So Mary, you're talking a lot about the technologies here as we move around the building, but does the operation and control of the facility factor in as well? I mean, do you want to touch on that a little bit?
The operation of the facility and control of the facility is that the facility, first off, a lot of these devices that we install are self-contained, okay? So the actual we do not want to, as Mark said, we do not want to increase the amount of operation for this facility. We're hoping that things like the cameras and that are going to go to an existing desk anyway. The other exciting thing is that we can actually set up so that these devices, if you have an existing control system, can actually feed into that system, and we can use that for analytics to actually maybe control doors, control ventilation. So it does two things. It can be standalone, but it can also go into your existing system as well.
Great, thank you.
All right, how are we going to pay for this is the question that many times that always evolves to. So the funding aspect, Mary touched on a little bit of what's happening in DC, and the big thing that came out was the CARES situation, CARES Act, and really in Wisconsin, that's called the Routes to Recovery. So Governor Evers announced $200 million to be released. That $200 million, $80 million would go directly to counties, and that would be the third bullet I would pass on to you. Mary mentioned about, in Congress right now, there's, partisan politics going on, and we try to stay out of that, but you have the HEALS and the HEROES Act that different people are negotiating there, and we're understanding that something will come out. We're really not sure. We just kind of wait to see what happens, but we keep up to speed as much as possible. So when that information comes out, we'll make sure that we communicate it to the Wisconsin Counties Association. So if I had to just summarize real quickly, 3 items that we have here. HUD received $12 billion under the CARES Act, and that can be used as community development block grants. There's also nursing facilities that money comes out. A special dollar amount for some of the counties within Wisconsin could take advantage of. And then the money for the $200 million that I mentioned already has to be used by November 6th. We're Department of Administration. Basically how the money came was from the U.S. Treasury. It came to state of Wisconsin, which Department of Administration will have. And then we can provide you more information about the requests and how to route that through. But November 6th is the date. We're trying to see if that can be extended a little bit so that counties can take advantage of it. But then just recently we found out, Mary, that there's for isolation rooms more money that's also been released. Would you mind talking about that?
Absolutely, Jeff. It just was brought to my attention actually on Monday that HHS has received another $5 billion. Okay, and of that $5 billion, $2.5 billion will be for education and helping nursing homes understand how to keep themselves safe. So an organization called ECHO will help with that. But that leaves $2.5 billion that they're actually talking about will be monies delivered to nursing homes for two things. One will be for mechanical upgrades that we've talked about. And then the most exciting is if you are a 4 or 5-star nursing home, which I was informed that Wisconsin, it has fantastic nursing homes and that's not an issue, is that they will also be receiving funding from HHS if they apply for it to actually do isolation rooms or isolation wings, meaning they'll be able to actually set up and potentially work with your local hospital, your local community, and inside your nursing facility to have a place for the elderly for isolation to keep them healthy and help them through the COVID-19. So there's some pretty exciting things happening. But again, it's a matter of reaching out and taking advantage of the existing funds. And with that takes a little bit of work.
Great, thanks, Mary. Once you have the funding, we talk about how counties can procure the solutions. One of the things that Congress actually said is, why don't you use some of the cooperative purchasing programs that you have available to you? So I know each one of the counties has different ones of those. And so again, this would be a customized solution. If you look at the graph on the right-hand side, we're talking about the procurement methods, but then also financing mechanisms. I'll talk on the next slide coming up here. But one of the things that Michael talked about was earlier in the presentation is short-term goals as well as long-term goals. And he's really talking about a procurement process of performance contracting, leveraging a holistic solution that deals with energy and operational efficiencies that allow you to take CARES dollars, whatever that dollar amount is, of $200,000. And if you look at ways to lower your energy and operational costs, you could potentially do $1 million project, having that financed over a period of time. So it's a concept that you can use also when you're considering about how to move forward. And then finally, there's also public-private partnership, a streamlined major renovations of new construction that you could consider, but that would be a very long-term goal at this point. So the next slide deals with some of the concepts, Mary. I'm wondering if you could talk about some of the things that you could consider when you're looking at a performance contract.
So when you're looking at energy savings, operational savings, reduction in future capital expenditures, there's ways that you can actually combine those to actually be able to pay for not only the COVID-19, but basically mechanical upgrades, because a lot of these systems are older. So some of the basic things that we look at are, first and foremost, is water conservation. There's an awful lot of water used in jails and in nursing homes, mechanical upgrades, weatherization, indoor air quality, which is more important than ever right now, windows, door, roofing, lighting upgrades. And as you're looking at these things, you'll notice that these are a lot of infrastructure improvements that can be paid for through reduction in utilities and operational costs. The other thing is renewable technologies, whether it be wind, solar, geothermal, photovoltaic. There's a lot of different renewable technologies that we can look at. And the electric to natural gas, I don't think I've ever seen the cost of natural gas as low as it right now. I know some of the outer facilities may not have access to natural gas. When we get way up north towards the Canadian border, there are some areas that might be all electric or electric and propane, but there is the opportunity to make some fuel conversions and have some really cost reductions. So what we would look at is a lot of different things that reduce the cost of operations, and that reduction in cost can be reinvested into the improvements itself. And that's what Johnson Controls Performance Infrastructure Department does every day. Now, these are longer term solutions. The shorter term solutions that we've talked about are readily available and I shouldn't say don't cost an arm or leg, but are affordable. But when you start looking at, I'm going to put bipolar ionization on, but I really need that mechanical upgrade, that's where Jeff come in and JCI comes in and says, you know what, if you need those improvements, let's help you figure out a way to fund those improvements. And so those are the things that Jeff was talking about, is we might be able to help you right now. And those improvements that we're installing are not going to be removed. They're put in ductwork. But if we need things like mechanical upgrades and water conservation and touchless fixtures, absolutely.
And I think that that's really the opportunity here for many of our counties, as we have budgetary restraints in other areas that are difficult. And again, as Mary talked about, items that need upgraded or maintenance. We can take that holistic approach. And that's what I've been learning over the past month or so working with Johnson Controls and talking about this, is that when we first started, the focus was on COVID-19. But if you look at it overall and you go back to some of Mark's comments about putting this ionization in all the buildings for this clean air, there's opportunity here for combining the difficulties of COVID-19 with CARES Act funding, with a Johnson Controls solution that long-term will provide a better environment. So that if it's not COVID-19, maybe it's COVID-21 or some other name, that we have an opportunity here to combat that, so that we're not being reactionary. We're actually taking steps today for something that may occur in the future, which we try to do. We try to not just kick the can down the road. We try to plan out the decisions that we make today. What is that going to look like 5, 10, 15 years down the road? And I think that by working with Johnson Controls, you'll see that that's what they're really looking at also, is what is the long-term solution, but let's fix today as well.
Absolutely, Michael. Thank you. And Jeff, maybe you'd like to talk about different funding sources that we can look at.
Yeah, and this is more critical now than ever, just due to interest rates. If you look at borrowing money at this point in time, it's uncertain. It's an uncertain time out there, but one thing that's not uncertain is that interest rates are really low to take advantage of. We don't have Johnson Controls, we don't deal with the financing aspect, but we have professionals on our team that can help explore tax-exempt lease purchases or bonds or alternative fundings out there that we could present to counties as far as how to best optimize their financial structure as far as their balance sheet and invest in the future. If that's of interest, again, there's short-term decisions dealing with COVID, but if there's that long-term holistic solution, total cost of ownership that Michael's talking about, we'd be more than happy to share that information. So this is basically our last slide. So I want to thank everybody for the discussion, and we'll turn it over to some questions and answer. But then our next steps as far as actions, determine if your county is interested. My colleague Jeff Van Ness is on. He coordinates the efforts. He's based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he'll coordinate with our 6 county branches throughout Wisconsin. We have team members ready and available for all 72 counties if that's of interest. But just see what the needs are as far as the county facilities, as far as what you're really looking for. We have a calculator that we can quickly put together on the right-hand side here about where things are as far as how your facilities are constructed, the age of them, some of the things that cost for utility and operational savings. And then you can see some of the tabs about how we coordinate that balance sheet and give you a real quick summary. And then we can identify some shovel-ready projects would be the second thing, if that's of interest to move forward to. Again, this is something Jeff Van Ness will be coordinating along the way, and his contact information will be on the next slide. And then look at the CARES dollars. We know that all the CARES dollar isn't just going for specific items. You guys have to take care of the basic needs of your counties as far as staffing, as far as just general things. We talked about hand sanitizers and other items that you guys are dealing with, but understanding about the state funding and the contracting mechanism, procurement, we'll have people ready to go to help you if that's needed. And then the fourth thing is thank you for everybody participating on the call. I'll turn it over to you for any Q&As.
Thank you, Jeff. And again, I just wanted to give a little more information. We have had significant interest with this relationship with Johnson Controls over the past month. We've had a couple of these smaller presentations, I guess, and we were kind of walking through those week after week, day after day, and we thought the best way to get this out because of the deadline of November 6th would be to have this general webinar so as many people could attend this educational session as possible. So again, right now, it will be open for questions, but I will want to reinforce that obviously you have the contact information there of Johnson Controls. You can always reach out to myself or other staff members at WCA if you have questions. If you'd like to talk to others that have already met with Johnson Controls, please feel free to reach out to us as well. I'm sure that they'd be happy to discuss that. But really, we've just had a great experience and a great partnership in this short amount of time with Mary, Jeff, and Jeff, and the WCA staff, and really just trying to provide a solution that we think can be helpful to you and isn't just a Band-Aid on something. I know that in discussions with other counties that we've had, towns, villages as well, you know, it's kind of maybe we'll buy this one item or we'll buy these two. And that's really kind of taking a little bit of a Band-Aid approach. And we understand there's budgetary restraints. And that's why we've come up kind of with this kit that Mary talked about or other purchasing opportunities so that you can really tackle this, not just with little Band-Aids here and there, but try to have that holistic approach that we think will be promising for today, but then also the future as well. So again, we'll open it up for questions. So please feel free to use the chat, use the Q&A, or again, if you're on the phone, you can press *9 to unmute.
Hey, Michael, one question that was discussed when we were, is this, if they have team members that wanted to see this presentation, is there a capability for them to share this with other people within the county?
Yes, Michelle, do you want to address that?
Yeah, absolutely. This is being recorded right now. It's going to be shared on the Wisconsin Counties Association's YouTube page. We're also sending it out in an electronic newsletter today. So it will just be a simple link that you could share with interested parties.
So one question that I had, Jeff, or Mary can answer this. What is the process? So I'm County A and I reach out to Jeff to discuss this, but what kind of are the next steps? How do you get the ball rolling?
Yeah, I can answer that. You're right. Reach out to Jeff Van Ness on the call here. Unfortunately, we have two Jeffs on the call, but Jeff Van Ness does all the heavy lifting. But Jeff will go through an assessment and talk to what the specific needs are. It could be one product where they're similar, where they just want to do polarization, then they can. Or if they want to look at a holistic solution, they want to do a presentation. We're welcome to wherever people want to do this. We look at it from a total cost of ownership. What's the construction cost? How does that affect energy, operational? How much money is available? What specifically they want to do from a safety program, and try to develop that holistic solution with that specific county. They may just want to do an assisted living facility. They may want to do that courthouse and jail. So it's really up to finding a better understanding about what that specific county request is and making sure that we develop that, strategic plan with everybody involved.
One of the things, Michael, I'd like to just kick in is that because of the amount of offices and staff that we actually have in Wisconsin, there's not going to be a long delay. So that's one thing, one advantage of working with Johnson Controls. I've also assigned 2 of my engineers just to Wisconsin because of how critical the need is. So Jeff does have access to all of our branch offices and all of our engineers to respond quickly and get information back to them so that they can make a decision timely.
We do have another question here. What if we have some older equipment? How do we know if these solutions will work on that? And how do we go about upgrading this equipment when necessary?
Yeah, I can, I guess I want to be humble with my answer, but as I said, we were around since 1885 and created the thermostat. We do billions of dollars in business every year. I'm pretty comfortable that any of that older equipment, we probably have upgraded other older equipment and know where we've stubbed our toe in and kind of perfected that along the way. So that older equipment will be evaluated. We actually have database software programs that keep track of all that information and the best solutions as time goes along. So that may not be a short-term answer to be done by November 6th. So I'll just clarify that right now. If you have a major boilers, lights, chillers, and controls that you want to replace at a holistic change out, that might take a little bit longer time, but I'm comfortable that we'd be able to address any issue that's brought forward.
So give you an example of one of the solutions. We had the same thing happen to us in a different state. And so what did we do? So the ionization in a lot of these devices are installed in the ductwork. They're not actually part of the actual mechanical device itself. And so we are actually taking a stage approach. We are getting the bipolar ionization in because we know there is some airflow there, making sure that the unit still operates. Then what we're doing is actually putting together a plan for replacement of the HVAC equipment. So we won't undo what you've purchased through COVID-19, but what we'll do is enhance the system over the next 6 months.
So Mary, I know that this has come up in a couple of our other presentations to some individual counties, but a lot of them are purchasing these robots that will clean a specific area. You kind of want to compare and contrast that technology to some of the products and services that we've talked about here today.
Yeah, we can. The robotic UVC light is a technology, again, that's been used forever, especially in surgical rooms to go in and clean. We can look at a layered effect, or we can look at a single effect. The robotic device does a good job, I'll be real honest. But once someone walks in and coughs and sneezes or spreads it, it's not going to get clean again until the system's set up again. So it is great for cleaning an area and sterilizing an area. So that, in conjunction with probably the bipolar ionization, which is continuous, which doesn't need to be maintained and is not harmful to humans, is basically then, so what we're doing, we're neutralizing what's in the air after they've sanitized. So we've talked a lot about the layered effect, or maybe we don't go with the robotics, we just go with bipolar ionization because, again, funding restrictions. But there, again, there is a layered effect, and it is a preference in the use of the facility. So coming in and help evaluating the use of the facility is really going to be critical as to the devices that we pick.
Okay, thank you. And then, oh, go ahead, Jeff.
We talk about three things, and that is preventing it from coming into the building. So before it comes into the building, while it's on spaces within the building, and then within the air. So before it comes in, on spaces and within the air, you want to have that three-layered approach, and with different mechanisms along the way, because as we all know, unfortunately, there's millions of carriers out of there. So having that in a room, as Mary said, one person comes in that's infected, even them breathing in that room, particles will come out.
Great. Well, I don't see any more questions in chat or Q&A. I'd like to thank again our partners here at Johnson Controls. Thank you everyone for joining us today. As Michelle had stated, this is being recorded and can be viewed again. But again, we greatly appreciate the relationship with Johnson Controls. This is a strategic partnership of the Wisconsin Counties Association and the Service Corporation. We think that these products and services can help you today and in the future. We're always here to answer any questions. We're more than willing, and again, the process to get out to your county to meet with the individuals that you think we need to get in front of, to walk the buildings, to see what solutions we may be able to provide. And so we're more than ready to answer that call. So please feel free, again, to reach out to Mary, Jeff, or myself, or anyone at the Counties Association. If you'd like to talk more to Mark Abley's Allison, we can get you that contact information if you don't have it already. But again, we just want to thank everyone, and please stay safe and stay well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Be safe.
Thank you, everyone.